Good to see you, brother.
Yes, sir. It's been 40 minutes.
I know. We just did a yoga class together. It was great. Everybody, I'm on with Sifu Patrick Donahue, also professor because he's achieved 2 black belts in 2 different forms of jiu-jitsu, if I'm correct. Also Budokan with studies from Paramahansa Yogananda. He owns Zen Martial Arts in Rochester Hills, Michigan. He is my friend, and I'm happy to call him that, and somebody I absolutely respect. And my daughter goes to his dojo. I've been to his dojo, and it's pretty cool. So anyway, without further ado, this is Patrick Donahue, and I'm glad we're doing this together.
As am I. Very excited. Thank you very much for having me. Honored and blessed to be on here with you today.
Cool. So I think what's interesting is your business and my business from the standard of business is really similar in the sense that you got to be, and I'm not talking about the dollars wise and all the rest of that stuff and brick and mortar building. You have to be absolutely passionate about what you do to do what you do, as do I, because otherwise, if it was just a business, probably we'd have both gotten out of it a long time ago. It's not because of the money made or not made. It's more in the sense of running a business with personalities and people and being there for people and assisting them with our chosen art and passion is, I don't know, I think it's what you live for. It's definitely what I live for. And my family, of course, but it's a different kind of thing. And both of us have been you were in finance, I was a real estate agent. We were both in very money-oriented businesses before. But tell people about your shift going from money, more or less, and as a finance guy to to this is where you want to make a living, and this is where you want to be, spend your time. Sorry, I forgot to turn my phone off.
I think I've always had it in my mind since I made this shift, finding the balance between temple and business. And I have to do the business part because I get to do on the mats. And I think, having a billing service or help at the front desk, or transactional kind of things, signing people up or anything related to tuition or someone buying a uniform shirt or whatever. I don't want to be helping someone on the mats and fixing their uppercut or sparring or rolling with them in jiu-jitsu and fixing their armbar and have to know anywhere in the back of my mind, this guy's 2 months behind on paying tuition or whatever. It just sort of muddies it poisons it makes it not as pure. And so I have to do this stuff. I talk with students. I'll say, yeah, I'm just the guy with the key. Somebody has to have the name on the lease. Somebody has to make sure that the rent is paid or the electric bill is paid. But it's our school, 100%. If I get hit by a bus tomorrow, the dojo should continue. And I think making that jump out of college, being a business major, then going to business school and working for an investment bank for 5 years, pricing municipal bonds, which is as exciting as it sounds. And having it just be so greed driven and seeing, at 25, 26, seeing what I was supposed to aspire to, the guys that were 35 or 45, who had millions of dollars and the coolest car and all kinds of other stuff, whether it was substances or, multiple divorces, and their kids hate them and they're chasing after girls half their age. I wasn't interested in going there. So why am I kind of following that path? And it was kind of odd to everyone that I didn't think that was awesome. Mm-hmm. And so, finding a way to make my recreation and my passion my profession was the jump. And I don't want to say it wasn't that hard for me, but it didn't sit right the whole time for 5 years after college, what I was doing. on some level. Parts of it that were great, and my mind likes numbers and stuff, but it wasn't that hard. But you're right, there are plenty of things about managing it week to week that if I wanted to make $1 zillion, I would have stayed in investment banking.
Yeah.
um there are things about it, obviously, just people. It's just people,
Mhm.
you can have little things arise, but all in all,
What was your biggest worry? Like, I know for me going into from real estate, making the jump was money. I was going to be broke. I was going to be this poor yogi, but I so desired what yoga could do for me because it had already done it, waken me up, taught me so many lessons, softened my heart, opened me up to all kinds of ideas. Like, I just wanted to immerse myself in that selfishly and then share what I learned with others. But I was terrified of just being absolutely broke, not being able to pay my bills. What if I failed at this? I had a lot of fear when I first made the jump, and then certainly, from time to time that comes back up, but in general, not so much. What about you? What were you afraid of, if anything?
thinking I wasn't super afraid of for myself, because I thought maybe it was the old, sort of story of, or the image of, if I had to, I would just live in my school,
Hmm.
a little bunk somewhere, a little loft, and lock up at night when students go home and live there. But
Hmm.
for me, it was, is this going to mean making this choice at 27 years old? Does it mean, is it going to preclude me and say, because it's evening hours and because it's way less money, or possibly, something that means I couldn't have a wife and kids, and it meant, cool, I'll do it at 30 and 40 and 50, and I'll be the dude that just lives in the school and works out all the time and doesn't have two nickels to rub together, but that's all right. You just pay him in a bag of potatoes or a dozen eggs. That's just what I eat that week. And it's like, for me, I was kind of okay with that, but maybe that meant that I couldn't have the family that I knew I did want. And so then it was just like, no, find what you love, and then find a way to get paid for it. And then maybe be smart on a couple of side or background or outside things that also can provide some income, until the school proves that it is strong and stable. And we've made it incredibly strong by just following that. The relationships, teaching, and the passion and the inspiration and motivation, and um, you know, the money will come later
Hmm.
in whatever amount that it comes in, and being okay with that.
But how many people say to you, "Oh, I want to do what you're doing," and then you try to explain it to them, like, "All right, well, this is what you have to be willing to do," and they're like, "Well, yeah, I
Yeah.
can't." Yeah,
Yeah. Then you don't really want it. You want to talk about it, or it sounds good. Or you
yeah.
don't want it to the level that I would call wanting. You
Right,
like the idea, but a
right.
lot of things in life are that way. You like the idea of saving money, but when you're at the checkout, you buy a whole bunch of stuff you don't need, or you love it, and you can't say, I've been broke for 20 years. It's always somebody else's fault. Like,
Yeah,
how much are you on Amazon, or how much are you wasting time on your phone, or buying
right.
things you don't quote unquote need, or physical fitness, or pick the example. You like the idea of it, but it's not even how badly you want it. It's how badly you're willing to work for it, day in, day out, no matter the excuses that come up.
There's also the willingness to let go of what you think other people think, what society thinks, what your family may has ingrained to you. As the child of an immigrant, it was like you're supposed to be a doctor or a lawyer. I'm sure a lot of immigrants, if anybody's got an immigrant family listening to this, are going like, "Oh yeah, that was the put," or an engineer or something like that. And I'm none of those things. But uh, so it's like you're also going against the grain of what society says, which is really hard. But look at how many people retire and within 2 years of debt.
Mm-hmm.
2 years, maybe three. Dad, what did you work so hard for? Right? Like as soon as you left that office,
So,
somebody
yeah,
else's name was on the door.
yep. And those are those green zones, though. We've talked about this, you and I, about those parts of the world where it's community that people feel well into their 70s and 80s and
Yeah, the
beyond.
blue zones, the blue zones.
Blue zones,
Yeah.
green, something else.
Yeah.
Green zones are a discussion with somebody else this week.
Yeah.
The blue zone, it wasn't green zone, but the blue zones, those areas in the world where it isn't your purpose isn't tied to your profession, and
Right.
your profession may end at a retirement age, but you have purpose and you're 70 some years old and you know the village is counting on you to sew, or you're 80 years old and the village is counting on you to cook the meal or whatever it is in the community.
Right.
It's culturally baked in, and it can't be, just some sort of, idealistic utopian sort of thing out of a movie. But when you give someone the purpose, and so for me, it would be what we really do here is build an engine inside of people, help them find their own. I believe it already exists, but really develop it, believe in it, grow it, and then apply it to whatever they want. So it's not just saying world champions. I have close friends who train to win, tournaments, or they train people to win. It's not just about creating world champions, but champions in their world. So if you take the things you learn, the engine you learn, the engine you create, lessons learned, and really deeply entrenched in you, then you apply them to whatever you do for either a living or whoever you are as a person and whatever you spend your time doing.
Yeah. And that's it's interesting because obviously, to say that that's your worldview about you, right? And I got my worldview about me and what I teach in yoga because I think that's what works for me. And but there's still those dark days, those hard days where you're feeling burned out and you feel like, oh my God, what am I doing? I wonder if Starbucks is hiring. But
But
on
then you
those,
lean on all those people in your closest circle. You know who mine would be if I feel that way? I'm having that kind of a moment, even if it's not a whole day. I'm just having a moment like that.
yeah,
Probably you.
and you're me. Yeah, I'll
You
call
want to
you.
grab
Yeah,
coffee. We remind ourselves both who we do it for, and you look at, your
yeah,
daughter, and I look at my son and my daughter, and we remind ourselves why we're doing it. And
right.
we're put, you've said it to me and I've said it to you, and I don't know who said it first. I don't really care. Like, why are you here? Are you here to just make the most money and then die? Whoever dies the biggest bank account wins. Or, you know what I mean? Like, what you can say that and people will say, well, that's how you keep score, how you're doing.
Sure.
It's in one area. Another way you keep score would be any of the tests that come back from your doctor. Another way you keep score, take 5 people around you in your life and find out what they really think of you
Yeah.
and what you're like in so many ways. Those are ways to keep score too, because you could find someone with all the money in the world, with the worst health, and the people around them, their family and friends, don't care for them at all.
Mhm.
And it's like, you want to call that winning? Okay, go ahead. I
Right.
don't, but
Right.
it's not also just so idealistic to say, everyone thinks I'm nice and I have low stress and I'm happy and I just eat a clean diet and I walk around the city and I whistle.
Mhm.
Yeah, well, you're going to get your lights turned off because you haven't paid any bills, because you don't have any fire to make any money and be successful if you want to buy your kid lunch. So
Right.
there's a balance to it.
Yeah. I woke up this morning. I do an ice bath every morning. I do a workout every morning, about 30 minutes every morning. And I went to the gym last night. And this morning, I'm like, man, I'm really sore. My shoulder's kind of tweaked out. I heard it doing something last night. So, I adjusted. I just did some sun salutations. I did the ice bath, but I'm sitting there staring at the ice bath going, I don't want to do this. I don't want to jump in there. It's freaking cold. It's 50 degrees. What am I doing?
David Goggins says that's why you do it, right?
That's why you do it. Yeah. Like extreme ownership, right? Like, what's his name?
Yeah, Jocko.
Jocko. So, like I know him, Jocko. Yeah, me and Jocko. And and so I jumped in. It's like because I think about all the people that I do it for, and then I get myself out of the way. But what's funny is the initial reasoning to get into yoga and the reason you got into martial arts was totally selfish. I love it. It transformed me. I was looking for answers. It helped me find them. It got me this thing, and it was totally selfish. But then when you really get into it, it's for the purpose of everybody else. Like there's this article about how yoga practitioners are also selfish. My chakras and my kombucha tea and my hamstrings and my this and my that. And then the article forgot to mention that you do this so that you serve others better. And that ultimately is like my bottom line is, am I still serving people better? Am I serving through what I've learned and what I can
Putting
do?
your own oxygen mask on first, in the way
Yeah.
the plane's going down,
Yeah.
so that you can help your kids or those around you who might need
Right.
it.
And so it's not really selfish anymore. I mean, maybe it started that way, but when you transition to that, and now I'm going to use what I have to serve because it's served me so well. It's like, this isn't really a job. It's like, I get to do this.
Get to.
And it's such a cool thing.
I still genuinely feel that way every time I come and put my key in the door, or at night when I'm putting my key in to lock up and walk away. It's almost like I'm getting away with something.
Yeah.
It's almost like, when is the gig going to be up? When am I going to get found out that
Right.
I get, all my students who have all kinds of other jobs, high stress, high pay, frustratingly low pay. They love it. They hate it. Well, it's a job.
Right.
And then after they come here at night, at 7 o'clock at night, I'm hitting a heavy bag with a student, and we have a conversation, and he'll tell me all about work. The daily fire alarm is going to go off.
I can't hear it.
You can't hear it at all?
Not at all.
Okay, good. Right across the street is the fire department. So
That's
they do
fun.
their noon every day.
Right.
But I'll talk with students about their stress. And that's why they come here. And
Yeah.
I think, I'm at work.
Mhm.
It's work for me. I'm rolling with somebody in jiu-jitsu. I'm doing push-ups with Ariella. I'm hitting a heavy bag or sparring with a student. And they do their whole day and their whole work day and their whole life. And then they come here after. And this is what I get to do. So yeah, putting the key in the door, I'm almost looking around like, does anybody know, like, this is what I do? How blessed I am.
Yeah.
I'm sparring and rolling. I'm at work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting. We had a flood a couple of weeks ago and had to replace all the floors, and long hours, and it sucked. I mean, it just sucked. And every time I walked in here those couple of days, I'm like, I got to do all this stuff because I have to get the place ready for everybody else to make sure it's clean and sanitary and all the rest of that stuff. And I was just hating life. But then when the floors were done and I had a day to kind of like chill out, I get to go back to work. I get to go back to Red Lotus. And there was just that thing. And I got to be willing to think that there's a lot of people out there that, would jump at the chance to do something that they love and are just afraid. And it's not just fear. I mean, look, if you got, a house and kids and a car and a health insurance and all these things, and you're like, well, I can't suddenly earn $80,000 to $100,000, standing on a street corner giving hugs to people. Well, that's probably true, and there's other ways to go. But like, what's the suggestion you give to people when they're sick and tired of being sick and tired, they're ready to make a change, they want to do something they love, and they're stuck? Like, what do you tell them?
Sometimes it's a change of perspective, and they're just sort of down in the dumps because they've done it, and they're progressed in a career that they wanted all the way along, and now they're to the place, the level they wanted to. And you're right, they have a golden handcuffs about now wanting to switch.
Yeah.
So gratitude for where they are and the comforts they have. Sometimes it's a perspective change. Sometimes it's slight perspective change and maybe a bit of an outside change. Okay, what are you doing on the outside that isn't allowing you? And obviously I'm going to, believe that it should be on the mat, but on the outside that isn't allowing you to come down or, release from the day.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's something that's not serving them, like bigger picture, not like I'm in a funk or I got a bad stretch or I'm going through a tougher time, but you wanted this and you worked for this and now you achieved this in whatever line of work you're in. Give yourself credit because you I've stuck it out and, been grinding through all different times and stages and ages of your life. And if you truly hate it, then you start saying, okay, what is a smooth transition to whatever you want to do next? If you truly do. But if it's just golden hit, I hate my job. And it might mean something like, then you start putting away more money in savings so that you can quit that job in 6 or 12 months, have enough bridge money to save and live without, blowing up your standard of living, unless you're comfortable doing that, or there's a big change, the kids move out or whatever. And then looking for it and not saying, I don't want to start over because I'm 45 or 55 or 60 or whatever. Maybe it's something like that. So,
Yeah.
and if someone's having a real hard time with it, I probably take it and I listen to them, and then I call you.
Well, I find sometimes too, like people think it's got to be either or, like I've got to quit this job to go do that, or I've got to, and sometimes there's like this middle way where I think you don't have to quit the job, but maybe go on sabbatical, maybe cut your hours, maybe go to part-time so you can add a second gig in, or maybe just start finding ways to self-care better so that when you're at work, you're not so miserable, and because you got yourself so wound up and beat down,
Yeah, it's almost like they have like these 4 pots of water that are all boiling over on the stove. You don't have to turn the stove off, but maybe turn it down.
Yeah.
A couple of, or even on even on 2 or 3 of them.
Sure.
So like you and I talked about when I was leaving class today, I said the rest of 2023, I just have some areas that I'm gonna sort of slowly phase out or cut back by 10, 20, 30%. And some other things that are being said, sort of simmering, that are important to me, and I've said it, and like yoga, and now I'm going to back it up and prove it by bringing it more into my daily week by 10 or 20 or 30%. And just that shift out of this one and into this one by a little can make a big change.
Well, I think too, like the one of the things I like about our friendship is that we can hold each other accountable. So if you say to me, this is what I'm going to do, and you tell me what it is, and I check back in with you in a week or 2 weeks, I go, so how's the XYZ? And oh, you were paying attention, weren't you? Okay, well.
Yeah. And I like that, because there's that little part of me goes, damn, he remembered. That part of me goes, yeah, that's why I love him. Like, that's why I want my life. That's why I tell him stuff. If I don't want him to hold me accountable, I better not forget, because he'll remember. I've told you that before, though. I try to be the same way for you or for students in my life or anyone in my life. Like, I'm a great guy to tell your goals to, and your plans to, and your commitments and everything. And I'm an awful guy, because if you go, I'm doing 25 push-ups every morning for a year. Every time I see you, I'll go, are those push-ups going?
Yep.
Hey, are the push-ups, you do your push-ups yet today? Get those done. Here, let's do them together. I'll do them with you. But it's like, then people go, oh, I should have never told them. I'm just reminding you of what you said you wanted to do.
Right. And that's the thing, is like I think one of the best ways to stay accountable is to tell somebody. You've heard of like the SMART goals, right? Keep it simple, measurable, accountable, relevant, timely. And making yourself accountable. I mean, why do personal coaches, why do therapists, why do physical coaches, why do classes work? Because it forces you to show up.
Yep.
Otherwise we wouldn't show up at all, I think. Or we'd show up, we'd quit. I mean, there are times where I'll practice yoga at home and I'll be like, it's 20 minutes. I feel like I kind of got what I need. But I go to a class, I'm going to be there for the full hour and 15, get like, all that extra, and it's kind of an interesting thing. I can't remember the phrase. It's sort of like the hardest part about being the teacher is that then you go to other classes and you're like, oh, I like what they did. I didn't like what they did. You don't really get it. You don't get your practice in as much anymore, right?
You look at it that way.
Yeah. Do you do that at other dojos? Like if you travel and go check out another dojo and roll with some people? And
of course, yeah, I'll end up just trying to go as a student and end up sort of wanting just to help or something, but I never ever want to step on people. A lot of times I'd rather go in, and it's getting tougher as I'm more connected in the martial arts world, the jiu-jitsu world, but I'd rather go in and just, I don't want anybody to know that I own a school or how many students I have or the ranks that I've achieved or the people that have trained under me or anything. I'd rather just go in and not know, because I also get to watch the teaching. It's not even judgment. Sometimes I'll be in there and there'll be a young guy. He's 25. He's a part-time teacher. He's only taught for a couple months, but the way he says it's pretty good or refreshing or different than I'm used to. And
Yeah.
so, there's a phrase in my world, they say black belt eyes, and you look through everything through that lens. And I'm sure there's a yoga equivalent and there's an equivalent
Sure.
in medicine and in law and in accounting and in any, profession. And you look at it through that, and it's like trying to have beginner's mind, trying to come to it and say, the way they're phrased it, their teaching style. And yeah, there's other times I'll just be watching a guy demonstrate and I'll go, should have rotated and demonstrated from the other side so that everybody could see or whatever. But like that's a little bit judgment, or it's even just me being used to teaching people how to teach. It's not just me going, well, I would do it. It doesn't matter about me.
Yeah.
Part of it.
But you get stuck in it. You get your head gets like,
he should learn because he's good, but he'd be even better if he did X, Y, Z thing.
Right.
And that's just my judgment in my head, and it doesn't matter. We move on, and I'm only there for a couple of days.
Right.
And I wish them the best, but they're little things,
Isn't it hard though to not say anything?
Oh, yeah. Usually I'm pretty good if I'm the new guy about keeping my mouth shut.
Yeah.
But if it's someone I do care about, I was in Arizona for a jujitsu thing, and I was a guest at a school one day, not with everybody from the conference. I just went to one, I don't know, 20-minute Uber away or whatever. And the main guy I really like, and he had some assistant instructors, but there was in that time, there was a little bit more of a liability thing. They had a person there on their first day that was wild and going to get hurt or hurt someone else. And the other guy kind of didn't know how to handle it. And he kind of looked at me, and we had talked for a moment. And so I said, have him watch, give him a pen and paper, have him just watch and take notes. Because the more he participates as the uke or the tori, doing the technique or having it done to him, he's wild, he's out of control, he's way too intense, he's unskilled, he's new, he's going to get injured, or he's going to hurt somebody, and then you're going to have some sort of injury liability insurance issue.
Right, exactly.
So, but other than that, yeah, just enjoy the time to travel and experience always.
Yeah. When I travel, I try to go to yoga studios. I just wear a plain t-shirt. I don't, nothing says Red Lotus, and I just
under the radar.
Just totally be under the radar. But you have a couple black belts. Like, do you just go in and without a gi and just roll with them? Or?
No, I don't ever do that. I've actually did that once completely accidentally. And I don't do that like sandbagging people will do, where they'll go in a white belt and try to do that. I don't do that. I don't do that at all.
Yeah.
I'll call ahead or send a message ahead or something, or email or whatever. Or if I'm going to a city, most of the time I know someone who teaches martial arts, teaches jiu-jitsu in that city.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll go, and they kind of know I'm coming or whatever. But I just want to be a student that day in class. But I won't do the sandbag thing where I actually did it accidentally once, and I got screamed at in Portuguese. I think I told you this story once. I was in Las Vegas. There's a big fighter, he's since retired, named Wanderlei Silva.
Oh yeah.
He had a school, he had a gym, and I was in Vegas for something else. And I didn't think there was any chance in the short amount of time I was there that I'd be able to train or be able to practice. But I had an afternoon, Friday, lunchtime-ish opportunity. So I called ahead, young girl answers the phone. I said, hey, blah, 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 blah. And at the time, I don't remember what rank I was, but I had 5 or 10 years of jiu-jitsu experience. I said, can I buy a gi there? And I see on your schedule, can I do your noon jiu-jitsu class? It says it's all levels, whatever. Because yeah, of course, come on in. So I get there a little bit early. I buy a gi, it comes with a white belt. I tell her, I said, I'm not a white belt. Is it okay that I wear this? I'm not trying to pull a move, purple belt or something at the time. And she was like, yeah, that's fine. It's totally fine. Don't worry. And, we have a really cool guest instructor today. He's a close friend of Wanderlei, and he's very high up in his jiu-jitsu family. And, he's only been in the United States a few months, doesn't speak much English, but, it'll be great for you to train with him. And I heard the name. I thought, awesome. So I'm out there and meet a couple of people. And I told a couple of the other dudes in the class, I have trained, so I'm not a total white belt, but whatever. And they were very good and cool guys. The guy comes in, starts the class, he shows us some stuff, and we're rolling, and he comes over, all of a sudden he just stops us and starts screaming at me, swearing at me in Portuguese. And then there's little moments where there was someone there that could kind of translate, and he's like, you think this is funny? You come in here and act like you've never done jujitsu? You're trying to come in here and then hurt people? Like, you acting like you don't know, but you've trained? and screaming at me. And I'm like, no, I have. And I'm like looking for the front desk girl because she like went to Starbucks or something. And I'm like, I told her the whole story. She knew that I was just buying the uniform to do 1 hour class, and he was like, get out of here, blah, blah, blah. And then she comes back and she's like, how's your class going? I'm like, I needed you. Where'd you go? And so she laughed. And then because she could translate, she explained to the guy, she told him the whole story. And then he kind of laughed. He goes, oh, my friend. And he's like, okay, great. Like he was like saying to her, like, no, you're welcome. We're glad to have you here. But I thought I was gonna get jumped by like 10 Brazilians because they thought, and I was a little younger and everything and stupid or whatever. But I literally had said, I'm not trying to pretend I don't know what I'm doing. I
Yeah.
sort of know what I'm doing. And
Mhm.
but made it look like I was trying to act like that. And I have people have, done that here or whatever, but
Yeah.
I do that. But it was a funny story about almost getting jumped.
Yeah. Sometimes it's funny. Sometimes I'll go to a studio, and if they ask me, if they go, oh, well, you've practiced quite a bit in the past. If we have a conversation, I'll go, yeah, I have. And, after the class, and if they say, do you have any suggestions? I might say something.
Sure.
If they don't ask, I don't offer it up, because then I'm just
exactly.
I'm just some jerk. And again, it's so subjective. It's my opinion. Now, maybe my opinion is valuable after all these years, but to
Is there
somebody
a new,
else.
and I imagine for you, if it was a new yoga guy and you liked him and the way your personalities worked, and you
Yeah.
hey, and it might come from a place of, like I said, liability or staff or any little comment, just a little
Mhm.
nudge here or there that I'm sure you and I got along the way from people that knew that world. So we're happy to pay it forward.
For sure. For sure. And I always would love feedback and suggestions to improve. I mean, you get so stuck sometimes in what you're doing and the way you've done it. Like, either I've really attained a level of mastery, or there's more to learn, and you get stuck in, like, I know it all. Then you stop learning, and that's always the biggest problem with teachers is I know it all. Yeah, it's interesting being kind of in our unique chosen professions. It's very
But you and
different.
I do it to this day. We'll bounce stuff off each other about anything, small or big. The layout of my lobby. I'm gonna give you a piece of furniture in the lobby when people come in.
Yeah.
You ever had an event like this, seminar like this, dealt with this situation, and you and I do it still.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny too, is like, even after all these years, like one little criticism and we're like, right. Well, maybe your ego is not that fragile, but like, I taught a class on Sunday. It's a great class. Even some of my more experienced, people who've been around a long time were like, something about today was just fantastic. Thank you. And I got an email with a really negative feedback, like 3 out of 10 stars, from a brand new student. And I'm like,
Yeah.
what did I do? Like,
And the words of those who are experienced should carry way more weight than a brand new first timer to yoga.
they
But it's
should.
still,
right
it's
right there.
yeah.
And so I emailed her back. I said, hey, listen, I thought I taught a pretty good class that day. Clearly you didn't have a good experience, but can you tell me a little bit more about your experience so I can improve for next time? I'd really like to hear what she has to say. Like, what happened for her that she had such a negative thing? So, and I will see if she responds. A lot of times they don't, but it is what it is. What do you think of parenting as a martial art instructor, someone who really embodies it, and all the lessons learned? Like, do you think
How do I use martial arts as a parent, or how do I use parenting?
well, it's like, people kind of look at us sometimes and go, oh, well, they must have really good parenting skills because they have done a level of mastery in their chosen profession or art. And I think parenting is just as hard for anybody. And maybe I've learned a few things from one side, but I'm sure my kid is screwed up on the other side somehow. It's going to have plenty to work out in therapy.
Your kid is awesome.
She is an amazing kid, but there's no handbook. You do your best. Do you feel like there's like it's given you extra skill sets or talents to as a parent?
Those those sticks that you can tie to baby trees, and then as the tree gets older you can take the stick away.
Mm,
I think martial arts can be like that for me a lot of times
mm.
in helping me parent. I can remember that it's tough now, but it's long-term good and it's worth it versus it's tough now, it's bad, and we need to cut it off and fix it. And I
Yeah.
think martial arts helps you to learn that in a million ways. You're tired, keep going. You'll find out more about yourself, how you perform tired than when you're fresh. And
Mhm.
you're doing push-ups, your arms are getting tired. Keep going. But if you are injured, if your leg is broken and it's just a Tuesday night, you might need to be smart about addressing the injury. And I think the same as a parent, you can watch your kid do something difficult. I even use the word moderately dangerous or challenging where they're not successful right away. You got to hold yourself back. You got to let them. You got to let them, even if they fall, they
Yeah.
bounce on their butt a little bit, like when they're in diapers, or when, if PJ goes out in baseball next week and he pitches and he just can't hit the plate and he's, just pitching terribly and he's melting down on the mound, and I could run out and take him out of the game. You need to leave him in there a little bit. And then there are bad things. I talk with both of my kids, my daughter, who's a little older, she's 11 now, PJ's still 8. And we'll talk about little mistakes I want you to have. Big mistakes you can't make. And as the years go by, big mistakes that teenagers make or whatever can affect their whole life. You
Yeah.
can't, you can't, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
PJ,
I'm so not looking forward to that
yeah,
daughter.
yeah, and you have that with a daughter, but even with a son, I have a different way. PJ, you're not getting a tattoo the entire side of your face at 16. At 16 years old. That's a big mistake because now the rest of your life, you've changed a lot of things about what's available to you and how people will perceive you. Right or wrong, you will done that if you got a tattoo like that at 16.
Yeah.
So the little mistakes versus big mistakes, and the little ones are hard to, so I can come back to frameworks, like I said, like that stick that sort of gives the young tree something to hold and grow against and support it when it needs it and keep it close when it needs it and wants to go awry. And then if we do a good enough job when that tree's older and bigger and stronger, I can take the stick away and be confident in the strength of the trunk and the strength of the roots.
Yeah.
And I think I can do that, and not intercede at the wrong times, but hold the reins tight in the right moments. And I think that has helped me parenting. I think I have two kids that are very, very different, as most people who have, more than one would say. And knowing your kid and being honest, what your kid is like and what they need. And that's helped me a lot because martial arts teaches that a lot. Discomfort is okay, stay in it.
Yeah.
But recognition, if I'm in a submission and I don't tap because I'm trying to be tough, I got my arm broken.
Right.
Not tough, that's stupid.
Yeah.
And so, you know what I mean? So you learn all the ways to not get caught the submission, but the humility to let you, tap and move on.
Right. Right. Well, it's fun. I love watching you parent because you love it. You really just, I want my kids laying on me on a Sunday morning, watching TV and eating whatever and just being in it. And I just love hearing about you parenting. God knows I love my daughter. I would do anything for her, but I always find myself busying up a little bit and not really spending as much. Like I like to do stuff. Like if I want to spend time with my daughter doing stuff, when she was younger, she's like, "Daddy, let's have a tea party." And I'd be like,
Yeah.
"Okay, let's have a tea party."
Oh yeah.
And I can see you just diving into it like, "All right, I'm going to wear a dress."
You'll never
And a
regret.
hat.
I heard those actors in a round table once, some actors talking. I forget which one said it, but he's very smart. And he's just actor you and I've seen in TVs and movies forever. And he said, they're talking about advice and stuff, because now these guys are in their 60s. Spend as much time with your kids as you can, as they'll let you, for as long as you can. You'll never regret it. It will pay you back tenfold in your relationship with them. Those are deposits being made in that bank account.
Yeah.
And in lessons you've learned and now take with you going forward.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's a really big part for me, at least.
For sure. Now, was your dad around a lot when you were a kid?
He was very business, very, 9 to 5.
Yeah.
But he traveled a little bit from here and there. I just had someone walk in my lobby. Can we hit a pause?
Yeah, let me hit pause.
Sorry, give me 1 second. Someone just walked in.
We're back. So in this time together, is there anything in particular you want to talk about? Is there any, life lessons message you want to convey to people who might be listening? Spoken from the mouth of the Sifu.
Can I ask you a question?
Whatever you want.
So we know very much, and we could go into it, or I can answer it briefly, how I feel about martial arts, about discipline, about destruction of the ego, about meditation, about self-discipline, about motivation, and why you practice and care for others and everything. You know me well, and you know the school and sort of the ethos that is the Rochester School of Martial Arts, all of my programs, and me.
Mm-hmm.
What does yoga have that martial arts doesn't get? What are we missing?
That's interesting, because I see them as really complementary, really.
Very
like on one sense, on a physical level, yoga can be very much a recovery from the physicality of our martial arts, just from falling and bruising and whatever. It also increases flexibility, which is super helpful for martial arts. But the focus on breath and concentration on breath in yoga has a huge benefit in martial arts, especially when you're stuck. And you know what they say in a fight: the plan goes out the window after the first punch, and after you receive the first punch. And
now you're quoting the great Mike Tyson.
I am
Grandmaster and Guru Mike Tyson. Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face.
Exactly. And I've been punched in the face sparring, and it all looks fun in games, and then until you get hit, and then you go into a stress mode and you have to breathe. And I imagine that for life lessons, the focus on breath is such a key ingredient in yoga. And I know you focus on it. I don't know how much necessarily, but I find that when you have the ability to work towards breath control, you can control everything else, because it's such a mental thing. And other than that, I mean, I know that the meditations you do are mostly breath focused, Zen style. And I like to do a lot of analytical meditation where it's a little, breath is the foundation. Then you move the brain into some other areas and things like that. That's just something I don't see as much I just haven't seen as much. Doesn't mean it's not there. I just haven't seen it. But they're so similar in their origin and structure and nature. I mean, yoga is a yogic art. Jiu-jitsu is a martial art, and there's the foundation beneath it, right? If yoga isn't about bending and twisting and breath and navel gazing, what's it about? Mm-hmm. Getting happier, living your most fulfilled, best life. Mm-hmm. And I would say, and probably you would say the same thing about martial arts. It's not about breaking boards and breaking bones and being the toughest guy on the block or girl. It's about how you live your life with integrity and strength and respect and honor. And those are the life lessons that you get from this practice. So to me, they're just two sides of the same coin, really. I mean, I think.
Agreed.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. And I think that, look, if we interviewed a third person here, from a different kind of martial art, what's your idea about it? And then you get into the whole Karate Kid, not the wax on, wax off guy, but the other one, not Mr. Miyagi, but the other guy who just, it's about being tough. It's about kicking ass. It's about breaking boards. Well, it's a different mindset. There's room for that. There's room for gym yoga, and there's room for goat yoga and puppy yoga. Those are all fun, and but for me, the heart of yoga is something that's just deeper, about the way you live your life off the mat. That you might not get at the gym where it's more of a workout. But there's room for both. So yeah, that's I can find no flaws in what you do. I never have. I only
Keep
see that.
looking. They're there somewhere.
Yeah, for both of us. For both of us. I mean, I wish I could just pay rent through love and hugs and give this whole thing away for free and live on donations or something, but that's not the reality of the world we live in. So, I don't know, 1,000 years ago when you had a sifu, how did they live? They didn't get paid. What did you do? They here's a chicken. I don't know. Sifu got fed.
Or
There was
if they were a monk in the monastery.
right. They stayed in the monastery,
No.
begged for food.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But a lot of them, I have a wall full of martial arts practitioners and founders of styles, whether their background was as a monk or you would say an ascetic or a philosopher. You might have worked at a university. There are people whose background, this is the other proof, kind of what you said about changing career. If I look on the wall and I have 9 pictures of 9 masters of different styles, and it goes from monk, and then there's military background, then there's businessman, then there's university professor, then there's almost what we would equate to like a gym teacher. Then there's another businessman, and then let's see here, how many more of these? Then there was a founder in more of a religious discipleship, all over, military inspired from the combat side, philosophical inspired from either university or meditative or spiritual monastery. So, and then how many other, I know phenomenal martial artists that work at General Motors all day till 6 o'clock and then come to the mats here.
Yeah.
I know guys that run great programs part-time after work back in an industrial park. And I know guys that own multiple schools and they're huge schools, they got a ton of students, and I don't think very highly of them at all. I really own a Chuck E. Cheese. And they got little kids bouncing around playing freeze tag and doing birthday parties. And they call that martial arts. I have major issue with them even using that phrase. Just say that you run a daycare.
Right.
Just don't put them in a gi and charge the parents and tell them.
Right. It's just these days in jumping jacks.
Really? It is. And then it's like we do after school. You can have a snack and do your homework and watch TV in our TV room. Then you're just a daycare. Just say it. Just own it.
Right.
So, but anyway, there's all kinds, and I think ways that I feel about the different types, just as you do.
Right. There's room for it all. It was interesting. I don't know why I was thinking about this suddenly and how it fits in, but so one of my teachers was a Tibetan Buddhist monk, but he started off, working he had a PhD. He was a professor emeritus or a professor at UCLA, Berkeley, Riverside of religious studies. And he was a professor for years in the college realm. Grew up Baptist, I believe, church 3 days a week and the whole deal. And then became a Buddhist monk, shaved head, robes, and went around the country teaching and talking and leading workshops. Had a really big following. He just made things really easy to sort of understand and hear. And then at one point he gave up his robes and got married. And I was like, well, why did you give up your robes? He says, originally the robes were designed to make you seem simple, like a beggar, that they had scraps of cloth that they wove together and made robes. And he says, I don't want to stick out. So he wore a t-shirt and jeans, like just changed over. Instead of the shaved head, he grew his hair back again and wore a beard. Still gave the same talks, but he didn't want to be burdened by like the look, because that made you stick out, not blend in. And then he sadly got pancreatic cancer, and he passed away a couple of years ago. And I was talking to his widow, and I said, near the end, did he fall into more Buddhist philosophy? Like, where were his thoughts? She said he actually fell back into Baptism, and that really gave him comfort. And I thought that was really interesting because, when I was studying with him, I wanted to be Buddhist at 100 miles an hour and, live the life and do the whole thing. And he reminded me that it's a raft to get across from one place to the other. But when you get to the next place, you drop the raft and then you move on and you don't carry it with you. Rafts are heavy. And that as much as we do, and as seriously as you and I both take our jobs, and as seriously as we treat our students, and as much empathy and heart as we give them, most of them are going to go at some point, and they will leave the raft, and maybe even you and I will leave this raft. I don't see myself leaving it right away, but or you. I mean, I feel like I'm too invested in what I do. I still love it, but
so then you're saying that we have what we started the conversation with, which was the students that have golden handcuffs at GM or anything else. We are so far into it, it would be very hard to leave or separate.
It would be. It would be. I mean, I've been doing this 20 years. From time to time, you think about it. From time to time, you get burned out and go, well, geez, what's next?
Yeah.
I don't have a what's next. And if I did, that would probably make it really hard. But because I don't, I'm here as fully and as deeply as I possibly can be.
Just like you are for the full hour when you attend a class versus 20 minutes where you're just dabbling.
Yeah, for sure.
Like if someone's just dabbling because they have a career, they can try it and they sign a little lease back in an industrial park, but it doesn't work out. They still have their career.
Right. But yeah, I mean, my raft still works for me. But I find too, like there's other things that work too. Like I'll go to the gym or I'll go hike in nature. I'll do other things. And that's also my yoga. And some people are like, you go to the gym? I thought all you did was like, what did you think I think? I just sat in a case meditating all day long and then you break and then send me out to go teach, break glass to go teach and put me back in there. I'm like, I'm a dad, I'm a human being.
But also, maybe you're in your raft. And I don't want to, and the raft is designed to get from here to there. But maybe I'm in the raft. I want to stay in the raft. And I can use the raft to usher others from one bank to the other across the river or whatever.
Yeah.
And I end up staying in the raft for my life, for almost the entirety of my life. But man, how many people could I ferry from one shore to the other?
Right.
And they enjoy the raft while they're in it, but they're not in it forever.
Right.
I stay in the raft and they could say, you never got out or whatever, but
there was, did you read, so Thich Nhat Hanh wrote a book about the Buddha's life. Did you ever read it?
I read a lot, but I don't know which one exactly.
Okay. Cause there's a bunch of those stories.
Sure.
And he described the Buddha as being at some point, someone who was like a ferry or a raft person who, and I never knew if it was an analogy or maybe that was his life. And I mean, who knows what was really written about him.
And the book Siddhartha, there's a big part where that's exactly what, Gautama does. Gautama Buddha.
Yeah.
Part of that from one side of the bank to the other.
Yeah. And I thought that was just, I love that analogy. And there's a truth to it too. Like, what to pick up and what to set down. Lama Marut would talk about it all the time. Like there's this idea of enlightenment in Tibetan Buddhism where you can emanate to all these places and be all these things to all these people. But that's very airy-fairy. And when you come to real day-to-day life, it's, well, what to pick up and what to set down. And how many times have we been in a dead-end job or a dead-end relationship or a dead-end mindset and just didn't have the courage to set it down? And then you set it down and you make space for something else. And it's such a freeing thing. It's kind of like you can accumulate all this stuff in your closet, right? You buy all this stuff. Oh, I got all this stuff. And then it gets so full, you don't see what you have. You empty out half your closet and you feel free, right? Same. I love that.
I do too. I like that a lot. And I like the idea of the, whatever the enlightenment, samadhi or satori, or whatever you want to call, the achievement of enlightenment. And then they say before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water, right? And like so much of it is that after that enlightenment or perspective change, the attitude inside of here and inside of here may change quite a bit, but your day-to-day, right? After the ecstasy, the laundry. Right? It's like, after you achieve it, then you still got, bills to pay and mouth to feed and floors to sweep. So,
Yep. And that's what I'm going to go do next. I'm going to go chop some wood and carry water.
yes, sir. You both.
All right. Is there anything else you want to say? Well, first of all, how do people find you? How do they find your dojo?
I mean, we're
And
downtown Rochester on 2nd Street. If you Google Rochester School of Martial Arts, on Instagram, there's a School of Martial Arts page. There's a zenmartialarts.com has it. I'm not super high tech, but there's some pretty good stuff out there. We have some great staff and students that do pictures and video and clips of class.
you got a lot of Instagram stuff too.
Yeah, they do a lot on the Instagram. The Instagram, man, I sound like an old man. On the World Wide Web, like those becoming a parents commercials. But yeah, that's me. I'm okay with it. So the best is call or walk right in, because we can find a day that we have an opening and we can do their class. And that's the best way to know. I can talk to you all about it and answer all your questions for sure. But it's like tasting an orange. I can hold it up. I can show you. I can tell you about citrus fruits. I can tell you about the vitamins inside, or how to slice it, or whatever else. If you take a bite, and until you do, you don't.
Right. And I've been there. I love your dojo. My daughter goes there 3 days a week. She loves the dojo, the community, the people, the teaching, the teachers. It's really one of the top rated dojos in the country, but Seafood Donahue is a little too modest to say so. So I'll say it for him. So if you're watching this and you're thinking about martial arts, check it out. All right, my brother. Thank you so much. Love you.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate you very much.
Absolutely.
All right. Bye.